And let's see here.
Hello.
Hello, are you here, Joe and Caitlin?
Yes.
Good deal. Okay, so welcome to this clap session called Workshop as a Verb, Designing a Holistic Digital Scholarship Workshop Program for an Academic Library. And I would like to introduce, let's see here. I'm sorry, Joe and Caitlin, can you introduce yourselves?
Hello, this is Caitlin Pollock. I'm the Digital Scholarship Specialist at the University of Michigan Library.
Can you introduce yourself, Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Bauer, and I'm a digital scholarship research consultant at the University of Michigan. Sorry, I was muted earlier.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I didn't have my notes. So yeah, we can go ahead and get started on the session.
Joe and I, sorry, I was just pulling up my notes, and Joe and I were just trying to figure out the technology because we're in a shared room on two separate computers.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to stay unmuted and Joe's going to run the slides and hopefully you can hear us both, but please let me know. Oh, it looks like the presentation is not in full screen. I believe Joe is sharing.
Let's see here.
Does that help at all?
I believe if you change your view options to 100%, it should, oh, I see, to fit window, you should be able to see the entire slides. All right. So Joe and I are here to talk about this workshop program that we've spent the past 3 years putting together. And we represent a cross-campus collaboration between the University Library and the School of Literature, Arts, and Sciences, which Joe is a part of. So as we already said, I'm the Digital Scholarship Specialist at the UM Library, where I coordinate our digital scholarship workshops and our public programming.
And I'm in the Literature, Science, and Arts College, where I'm in a IT shop and work a lot in consulting on projects, work a lot with the library on projects as well.
Okay, and we just wanted to start with a land acknowledgement that the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor campus currently resides on land ceded to the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. Additionally, in 1817, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Buttonology nations made the single largest land transfer to the University of Michigan, ceded through the Treaty of Fort Meigs, with the hope that their children could be educated. We acknowledge that our university stands, like all property in the United States, on lands obtained in unconscionable ways from Indigenous peoples. Knowing where we are changes neither the past nor the present. However, through scholarship and pedagogy, we work to create a future in which the past is thoroughly understood and the present supports human flourishing and justice while enacting an ethic of care and compassion. Next slide. Yeah, perfect. So part of this workshop, or part of this presentation came out of Joe and I spending a lot of time trying to apply those values of ethic and care and compassion to our workshops and our workshop series here at the University of Michigan, especially when we noticed that there was a lack of formal education and curricular education. So we really thought about workshops not as a passive and transactional event, but rather instead an active learning engagement using Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. And so we aspired to make workshops that are not just lecture series. They encourage people to come with their own projects. Workshops are scaffolded, so you can build through an entire program. Our workshops are modular, so with flexibility and agility, we can put together new workshop series. And we want to build a community of instructors and researchers so that we're not siloing digital scholarship in just the library or just in the LSNA, which is the School of Literature, Sciences, and the Arts, but rather a cross-university endeavor. And that also means reaching out to our sister campuses in Flint and Dearborn. As well, we want to develop comprehensive and holistic workshops that don't feel like one-offs or one-shots, but rather represent the digital scholarship program that Joe and our other colleagues and I are trying to build here at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, so when we look at these workshops, there's a bunch of themes and values that sort of cut across all of them, have to do with things like sustainability, preservation, accessibility, privacy, and consent. And we kind of took like we designed them backwards, like started at the end and came forwards, and based off of like, you know, so that we would know like where, you know, where are you going from, where are you going, and it's not just like, you know, what you're stuck on at the moment. We wanted to make these accessible in order to, you know, use with Zoom. So we would go through and talk about Zoom etiquette, and we try and make the, you know, have the auto captioning on, and we'd like make the slides available as well during it. And we also worked hard at making the space safe for folks. We wanted to make sure that, you know, since these were, we called it a Digital Scholarship 101, we wanted to make it feel very non-judgmental. So if somebody comes in, it's not assumed that they know a whole lot. And that if they ask questions, that even, you know, no matter how basic they are, that they, you know, they're treated well. And then that also means, like, if we're doing recordings, making sure that people can do things like turn their cameras off and or just submit questions via chat, or if we're recording, that we turn the recording off during like question and answer times, things like that. And a little bit about the whole big picture of like where this all fits in is that the University of Michigan is well resourced, and we have a whole lot of technology, although you do kind of need the secret decoder ring in order to access all of it. And people's time is also, like, you know, we have not a lot of capacity at times as well. And our campus is very decentralized. But we have been able to get together like 14 digital scholarship workshops and about 2 to 3 events that are public. And so the Digital Scholarship 101 series is a workshop series that fits within a whole programming program, along with a DIY digital scholarship workshop series and a gentle introduction to kind of series. And the Digital Scholarship 101 series is much more about things like how to avoid outdated projects, how to avoid unpreserved knowledge, uncredited labor, privacy, consent issues, things like that. And it's a lot more of the like how or why you would do things, the theory around them, and then there's a little bit of practice, but it's much less of what Caitlin has cited before as like buttonology, where you're going in and saying, press this button, press that one. So it's usually technology agnostic is what it is here. Whereas the DIY digital scholarship and the gentle introduction to series usually are more technology focused or process and practice oriented. And they're meant to kind of work together. So they're all scaffolded so that you could take all of them in a row together, and then you would have a very holistic approach to everything.
Yes, and we should say that is John Russell at, who I think is currently at Penn State, and his article, I believe, with a co-author, and it's like slipped my mind on the term buttonology. So when we started thinking about how we could be more flexible and agile with limited time and capacity and staff, we started thinking about modularity and how we could make our workshops that we were pouring so much time and care and labor into to be multi-purpose. So we started designing workshops that could be reused, or portions of them could be reused to support two major initiatives out of the library and LSNA, which is our anti-racist digital research initiative, and our digital scholarship certificate, which is a non-curricular graduate certificate. So the idea is that, for example, students in their certificate take all of the DS 101s and they choose 2 or 3 of our other workshops or workshops they find on campus and into certain like pedagogical or research tracks. And so the idea is that we can do major initiatives by building in the work that we're already doing that's part of our job descriptions. It also allows us to create new workshop series with flexibility and with agility if we make things modular. So we can take portions of different workshops and put together and create something new that addresses a gap that we may have noticed or observed, or feedback that we receive. We can also adapt workshops that are requested on one-offs outside of our workshop calendar. So for example, people have heard about us and heard about how much others have enjoyed our workshops, and they ask us to teach like a special one for like a cohort, for example. And because our workshops are designed to be so flexible, we can sort of put things together and make a little bit of a Frankenstein workshop if people want, a couple of the DS 101s put together into one session. So we try to design them with as much flexibility as possible. And we have an image here of a modular home being built. And that's supposed to be like the idea of how we're building these, is that we can bring in different portions from different parts of workshops and bring them together. And so with the DS 101, we really for us, we sort of we experimented with the scaffolded structure. I think one of the challenges we had was recognizing that not everyone is going to go through the entire DS 101 series in order. It's really hard in a non-curricular program to get that to happen. So not only did we have to work with workshop instructors to make it scaffolded, but we also had to make sure they could also be standalones. And so these are foundational workshops with little to no technical instruction. The idea is that you are learning the foundational practices and methodologies for running a project that align with our values. So you can just go ahead and get started within our environment. And the goal is really to avoid outdated projects and preserve knowledge, uncredited labor. And the idea is that to also start modeling the type of digital scholarship we wanted to see here at the university. And that means, your student workers are getting paid, they're getting credited for their work with something that can be understood on a resume or CV, and that the library and other technical units throughout the university are not saddled or forced to steward projects that are orphaned and are sort of like link rot and all of that important things when it comes to digital scholarship. But I think Joe and I also noticed that there was a lot of anxiety and fear about learning digital scholarship, especially from folks who've never had any technical training. And so we wanted a place that was a safe place to learn, kind of the idea of no judgment, just help. And you could come and ask, the most basic question, and no one is going to be mean to you. I don't know if anyone else has experienced sort of coding or programming forums on the internet, but sometimes they can be quite overwhelming and judgmental, and we wanted a place that wasn't that.
So the workshop series itself, right now it contains 6 different workshops. When we first started it, it was 4. And as time goes on, we kind of keep evolving and adding and removing and modifying them. But the first one is about conceptualizing your digital project. So it's where you learn how to think about what the project is, scope it, design it, put it together, and start the planning process for it. Then planning your digital project is exactly that. It's not just kind of a 101 on project management. It's also here are some other things that you need to think about when you're starting to launch a project that nobody ever talks about. So things like the labor ethics and so forth and so on as well. Then teaching with digital research, this is one that we've just started doing because we started seeing people who are doing a lot of teaching with their projects. And so we're getting together like a pedagogy overview, project management in the classroom, and how to develop your syllabus so that leads to a successful final project. From there, there's the managing data for your digital project. And this is where kind of, it's foreign sometimes for humanists or, or artists to think about their works as data. But this kind of tries to think through that and what it means and how to take and preserve your materials, what's in to address privacy concepts, and how to keep things sustainable as well. Then there's understanding accessibility for projects, which is a major thing for us. And it's basically learning how to design and prepare content of digital projects for accessibility throughout the entire life cycle of the project, not just at the end as something shoehorned in. And then there's advocating for your digital project, which is where it helps participants describe the value of their project and how to help people know about it or find it. So one of the things that we were seeing was people had that sort of like, if I build it, they will come mentality. And we were finding that that was definitely not the case.
And I think that one is also talking about how you make your digital project legible to a university system that may still prioritize traditional manuscripts and articles. So how do you explain this to your chair or your dean? And how do you demonstrate its impact on other scholarly works?
Exactly. So why do we do this thing? Well, Caitlin and I and all of our colleagues do consultations a lot. We have office hours, and we also get booked for specific consultations on projects. And we kept finding these patterns of sort of like misconceptions or gaps when we were doing consultations. And it almost became like this running FAQ of frequently asked questions that we started seeing these themes and patterns that we talked about at the very beginning. And so we just decided, well, why don't we just have some basic workshops that go and cover these things, and then we can start inviting folks to those and cover them all together. And then we also saw that a lot of projects were starting, but very few of them were completing. And we thought that a lot of times when we talked through with that with folks, it seemed to be connected to those earlier mentioned misconceptions or gaps. And we wanted to help kind of form a craft of doing digital scholarship at the University of Michigan. And what we mean by that is that there's our certain environment has very unique characteristics. We have, there's certain scholars here who have different emphases on different fields. And we have certain resources and so forth and so on. So what does it mean then if you need to do digital scholarship here, not just generically? And so that's what we wanted to really address, was like the here and now present that. We also saw there wasn't much going on at the institutional level, and anything that was much more science oriented or quantitative, and just didn't really fit well. And also we wanted something for folks who were at the beginning of their journey, much like our little image here of the old school Link from Legend of Zelda, getting some early help on starting his journey, getting some valuable resources from this old man in the cave.
So we did want to talk about what worked well. We're going to start off positive, and then I think we'll go into our challenges, because we don't want to paint this as just a rosy picture, that there's definitely been obstacles. But what we have found that worked well, and I should say we launched DS 101 in the fall of 2019. We did our first workshop, and then the second one was supposed to happen in March 2020, about a week after we were all sent home. So we learned these were all meant to be taught in person. So we very quickly had to turn them around and figure out what teaching these type of workshops would be in an online environment. And we actually found Zoom afforded us many different things. students and faculty and other members of our research community who are on, like, for example, research trips were able to join in wherever they were in the world globally, as long as they had internet access. And then, of course, it allows us for different types of accessibility, like captioning, sharing of links easily, and those sort of things. So having to transition to Zoom, we quickly realized that we always prefer to have every workshop with 2 instructors or facilitators, as we refer to them. And then, of course, a support person for each workshop. And that support person is troubleshooting any technical issues, monitoring chat, sharing links, or any documents or resources the facilitators want to share out. So the facilitators are just able to focus on leading the workshop. We use a common tag for our workshops in the registration system, so we have an easy URL that we can share widely to our community. We use patterns that we see in our office hours and consultations to come up with topics from workshops. We also ask our colleagues and other researchers on campus what they would like to see. We provide resources and recommendations. So when we do consultations, we're able to provide resources and recommendations for these workshops. If someone wants to learn more of this outside of a consultation, we're able to share these workshop series as resources. We try to have everyone introduce themselves within the Zoom, not just the facilitators, but everyone in there. If it's too many people, we ask them to do it in the chat in a way to kind of create as a culture or a community, within the Zoom room. And then we try to link the workshop to our core initiatives, like the Anti-Racist Digital Research Initiative or our certificates. And we also try to align them with library, LSNA, and university values and goals. And then we always take a break over the summer, and we try not to teach any workshops at all, and we try to reflect and debrief. And that's when we do our kind of breakdown of what we've seen from our consultations and try to do some creative brainstorming on the workshops that we want to teach, where they sort of naturally fit as a workshop series, and if that workshop series needs a description to help frame it. Next slide. And so one of the things that we actually found was that we should have just a massive planning spreadsheet that is available to everyone in the digital scholarship team to access. I think we had a situation over the summer where we had a grad intern who was doing some work for us on the workshops, and I was like away for like a day, and people were like, where are links to this workshop? Where's the recording to this workshop? And I knew them all in my brain, but I wasn't able to like share that information out. And so instead, we decided to have a central place where everyone who's involved in this work within the library and LSNA can come and see. And so this also helps Joe and I with our planning. We can always see what's missing, what needs a Zoom link, what needs a registration link. Once it's been uploaded to, we're very lucky here at the University of Michigan. The university has its own streaming platform called My Video. And so we're able to upload things to My Video. And we have that link in here, we have descriptions, and so we can always see what's coming next and what needs to be done with little check marks, who needs to be talked to. And so not only is like a central information hub, so that information is not being siloed with either one of us, but it also just allows us to keep track of everything, especially during busy seasons like fall, like the fall semester. I think I'm just gonna check my notes because I feel like I may have left something out there. No, I think I covered it all. And we actually have a link at the end of our presentation that has it's like a Google Drive, public Google Drive folder that has a template of this planning spreadsheet. Yeah.
So along the lines of templates, we also started this year making a presentation template so that we can kind of ensure some uniformity of experience across the instructors or facilitators. And it gives space for things like land acknowledgements, feedback forms, how people can get further help and so forth. And also these templates are based off of the accessibility slide deck designed by the University of Michigan Library Digital Accessibility Team. And so it kind of helps anybody who's starting to design a workshop just kind of know what the framework or the guts of a workshop might look like and get you started in that way.
It also comes with like our land acknowledgement, an end slide for feedback forms, for how you can come to our office hours. So all that is already in place for the instructors. They just have to kind of fill out the guts of it.
Yeah. And then before a workshop happens, we email all the participants with basic info like the Zoom URL and so forth. And then after the workshops, we send out stuff like the post-workshop survey and link to the video if we were recording it, things like that. So some of the other templates we made were email templates where we, instead of kind of doing this all ad hoc, we started making these templates. So we just fill them out and then also pre-schedule them in Google's scheduled email feature. And that has made life so much easier, such a simple thing.
Yes. So basically we're sending 4 emails per workshop, and it's so much easier to just send those, schedule those to send in one session rather than having to come back and send in each email individually. And I don't know about you all, but during the pandemic, like the little bit amount of work just felt like a huge amount of labor to me. So if I can just, get it all done in one sort of work session, happy to always do that.
Then we got the challenges.
Oh yes, this is me because I'm the more pessimistic one of the two of us. So challenges, coordinating logistics and calendars is just it can be a nightmare because we're not only looking at people who don't have a lot of capacity, and while the University of Michigan is well resourced in technology and stuff, they could hire more people. They've chosen to put their money in technology and stuff, unfortunately. So often people just don't have a lot of time, especially when we want to level up to experts who are just in wide demand for their time and their labor. And then we're also competing with the academic calendar, and sometimes we have to make concessions. I think our last workshop, unfortunately, we had to schedule during fall break, so we just didn't get as many graduate students as we normally would have. But that was the only time that the 3 instructors had a shared opening. So yeah, coordinating the logistics, I think it takes Joe and I a good month just to coordinate everyone's calendars and get polls placed on everything. And then do we record? And if we do, when and how, and who gets access? So we always leave it up to the workshop facilitators if they want to record it. We're always happy to record. And to be quite honest, I've been looking at our numbers, and people don't really go back and watch the recordings, but we like to have at least a copy of them. So it's always up to the instructors if they want to record. And if we do, like when and how. And so for that, we've always prepped people for when the recording is going to start so they can turn off their cameras. And then, as Joe said earlier, we decided at one point to turn them off during the end Q&A session so that people could ask questions with a little bit more privacy. And that was just some feedback we got from folks who felt a little apprehensive about having a question that they felt like was silly but was not silly be recorded. And then the access piece is the one that we're grappling with right now. Currently, the links to the recordings are unlisted, so you can only access them if you have the direct link, and we only share those with the workshop registrants because we're using Zoom auto captioning, and the accessibility guidelines of the university say that we can't share out videos widely if the transcripts have not been corrected and are more accessible, which we are happy to comply with. So right now, I think our summer project is to find what we think are the exemplars of the workshop series and work with the library's digital remediation team and the My Video auto captioning team to clean up captions so that we can make public playlists of our workshops. And then I saw the question, I'm going to ask it. Yes, if you register, but you're not able to make it, you still get a recording and you still get the slides. That's one of the benefits of teaching over Zoom. There's no real, and we're on an enterprise Zoom, so there's no real cap on registrants. I don't think we've ever hit the 100 people one. So folks can always go back and look at the slides or look at the recording. And then we try to pay people where we can. It can be a little difficult if the university feels like this is part of your normal job description to provide these trainings. It can be hard to pay people, but if we invite, for example, instructors where this is outside of their job duties and we're able to pay them, we do. We try to practice what we teach in the workshops. And we try to find creative space to develop new workshop series and try to not let us kind of get stuck in offering the same thing every year and expand our instructor pool and our offering pool as much as possible while taking into consideration capacity and burnout. And then, of course, we're still thinking about innovative methods of engagement in Zoom. So, for example, one of our workshops, participants review a a project charter together and provide feedback. Or for the project management one, they have to design how they would make a sandwich for a friend and then report out with their design. And so we're trying to find more interactive ways that aren't necessarily breakout rooms where people can turn off the camera, work on the activity by themselves if they want to, and then come back. We notice that all of a sudden everyone leaves when the breakout rooms get initiated. So those are some of the challenges that we're still working on, and we're still kind of judging how well some of those things are working for using our feedback forms and debriefing with the instructors. Is this also me? Yes. So lessons learned. Running workshops well is a lot of work. I saw a note that this is organized and impressive. We're glad that you think that, because most of the time it's Joe and I sending like frenzied Slacks back and forth because one of us forgot to create a Zoom link, for example. And I think the planning document, the planning spreadsheet that we created for this year, the email templates, it's all us trying to make it more programmatic and try to ease the sort of administrative labor behind it. And we would prefer to take that administrative labor on ourselves rather than ask workshop facilitators to do that. We just want them to focus on creating really great workshop content for our research community. But it is a lot of work, and you'd be surprised how much time we spend sending emails and creating Zoom links and getting things into our registration system. As well as like writing descriptions for the workshops, convincing getting workshop instructors to find time in their busy schedules to review the descriptions or write their own, et cetera, et cetera. Getting people to sign up requires a lot of networking. We have to be constantly pushing these out. There's a lot of offerings here on campus. There's a lot of events going on campus, and we want to make sure we're in front of people's eyeballs. People will provide feedback via surveys if you ask them, but you got to ask them a few times. And so that's where kind of scheduling out our emails has been really helpful. Our general rule is we ask them 3 times to fill out a feedback form, and then we're done. So we ask them within the workshop, in the first follow-up email that has the recording, and then we send one last follow-up email for the feedback. It's useful for us to get that feedback, obviously, to see what we are doing well and what needs to be improved. And we've also discovered that as some of our instructors go up for promotion, for example, they want those feedback forms so that they can include that in their documentation about how they're growing and improving on campus. So it's not only for us to improve our systems, but also to help our workshop facilitators and instructors demonstrate their own impact on campus. And then right now, what we're struggling with is like figuring out if we've reached a level of saturation. So we've been teaching DS 101 since fall 2019, technically, and we're seeing numbers drop off. And Joe and I are wondering if we've just hit all of the demographics on campus that we need to hit, and we need to wait, for example, incoming graduate students who don't know that they need these yet. They're not sure if they're going to do digital research. We might need to give them a year or 2 to realize that these are gaps that they need to fill, and this workshop series can fill them. So we're trying to figure out how we can switch it up and make our content feel maybe fresh and renewed year to year.
Yeah, and so that's some of the things that we're working on and growing right now. So the future, one of the things is a materials repository. So having kind of like one clearinghouse for all of the like resources, templates, and so forth that the instructors are working with or providing. And then also starting to include some of the project alumni as co-facilitators. So like with the project management workshop, we actually have somebody who was a project manager for one of our previous projects come and help, provide their experiences that are very, very nice, and because it's direct experience. And also trying to bring in more support folks. So we usually have our general process is to have 2 facilitators who are actually running the workshop, and then have a support person also. And so we're trying to kind of build up a network of support folks who aren't just me and Caden. And then also trying to work on sharing the recordings a little more widely. coming up with like a playlist or using channel features in our streaming video kind of stuff to just have a bit more of like self-help kind of things out there, so that if you just don't have time for the, to wait for the upcoming workshop or something like that, you can go and see one that had already happened. And also, as Caitlin mentioned, kind of looking at like, do we do a DS 201 series also, have we introduced as a whole bunch of people, and we saturated it now. So we're kind of looking at that as well. And as promised, here are some of the resources, links to resources and example documents that we've talked about already. And maybe we'll get the link to the slides in the chat at some point if it hasn't already. And then you can go and grab some of those yourself if you want to take a look at them outside of this. So I guess at this point, does anybody have any questions?
I think we saw a question in the chat about our average live attendance for workshops. And it does quite vary. We noticed that for example, our data management on DS 101 is incredibly popular. We've had 40 to 50 people register, and then some of the literature I've actually read around YouTube viewership to subscriber stuff, and this is how I've formulated this, is that we're happy if about 10 to 15% of the registration numbers show up. For us, that's like a pretty good ratio. So I think we had about 20, 25 people at that one who actually showed up. I think maybe 30 people showed up. And it also just is also contingent on like where we are in the semester. We have really high engagement in the beginning and the ends. And then in the middle, I think just everyone gets a little overwhelmed. So on a good year, I think it ranges from like 10 to 40 registrants with maybe 10 to 20 live attendees. This year, we're struggling to figure out what's going on because we haven't really changed our push out, but we're getting less registration numbers than usual. And I do think we reached a level of saturation on campus. We'll see about we have some new workshops coming up later this month, actually next week. So we'll see if that, if maybe that will change up our numbers.
What percentage of attendees are faculty, staff versus grad student versus undergrad? And you know what, this changes, of course, all the time, but I've been very pleased about it being fairly even across most of the workshops. We do always kind of communicate them as being open, free and open to all staff, faculty, and students. We also have every once in a while a professor will put one of them in their syllabus, and so then students come. Yeah.
I also say that we've had digital project teams show up, and we're always very happy when it's the PI and their student workers who show up together. I think we